Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where frontline sales leaders teach you how to build and scale an outbound sales team.
This episode of the Predictable Revenue Podcast is brought to you by SDR Pods. Learn how we can build you a fully equipped sales development team to execute on personalized multi-channel prospecting and book you more meetings at the link below. You might have the world's best product or service. Its impact on your customers would be revenues increasing by 50%, 100%. Your end user can retire 20 years early because of how much time you save them. It could be priced perfectly to sell by the thousands. But if you don't know how to position your product or your service to these prospects, you're never going to sell. I'm your host, Sarah Hicks, and today on the Predictable Revenue Podcast, I'm going to be chatting to an expert about how to write a value proposition. He's the founder and CEO of Hawke Media, the fastest growing marketing consultancy in the United States. Launched in 2014, Hawke Media has been valued at $75 million and has grown from 7 to over 150 employees at 3 locations. The company has serviced 2,000 brands of all sizes, ranging from startups to household names. As a serial entrepreneur and marketing expert, he's a sought-after thought leader in the world of digital marketing, entrepreneurship, sales, and business. He's the recipient of numerous honors and awards, including Forbes 30 Under 30, CSQ 40 Under 40, Inc. Magazine's Top 25 Marketing Influencers, and Best in Biz North America's Marketing Executive of the Year. Erik Huberman, welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Really excited to get into it today. You're going to walk us through a value prop workshop later in the episode, so definitely that's what I'm very excited about. But before we get into that, Erik, tell our listeners a bit about you and how you got where you are today.
Sure. Background is in e-commerce. So graduated from college in 2008 and went into commercial real estate exactly 1 week to the day before the entire banking industry collapsed. So made $350 that year, which was fun. Decided to start looking at other things. About 6 months into it, realized that real estate probably wasn't going to be timed right. So started working on my first e-commerce company, which was an online music company that did one-on-one business coaching for musicians. Built that for 2 years, hired a CEO to take it over, and then consecutively built and sold 2 fashion subscription e-commerce sites. And after that, had just built a reputation in LA of knowing how to build and grow these things. So started consulting and advising for a lot of different brands, big and small, on how to drive revenue growth using marketing. So worked with Red Bull, Verizon, Eddie Bauer, Bowie Total Fitness, HP, and as well as a lot of startups, and just ran into the same challenge over and over again that I dealt with my own businesses. But then this highlighted the fact that it was actually a more global problem, which is when it comes time to execute on marketing, the ecosystem kind of sucks. There's 2 options. You either hire a team in-house or hire an agency. But with hiring in-house, most brands are not going to attract the best marketers out there. So they're going to be picking any mediocre person off the street that says they're a marketer and has it on the resume. But 90% of marketers, 99% of them don't actually know how to market anything that well, how to build a business through marketing. And even if you're able to find the good ones, then they're usually expensive because a good marketer can make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And so if you're able to afford them and you're able to attract them, so you get the best marketers and you now can pay for them, now you're operating in a vacuum. And my favorite example of this is the CMO of Pepsi went on stage a few years ago ranting about how agencies were BS. No one needs an agency anymore. And then they came out with that beautiful Kendall Jenner ad where she solves racism with a can of Pepsi. And
oh gosh. Yeah. We all know how that went.
One of the many problems of operating in a vacuum, as well as unless you're a Fortune 500, the relationships with the platforms like Facebook and Google, you're just not going to get that hands-on approach that they'll give to an agency or a bigger company. So that's why agencies exist. The problem with them is 99% of agencies have no idea how to actually grow a brand. There's a lot of snake oil in the business. And I see it daily. Like a person I've known for years went from like real estate tycoon to executive coach to like creating like a YPO competitor that failed after a year. And now he's a CMO and marketing expert. And it's like, you actually know nothing about marketing. You've never done anything in marketing. And now you're going to go take people's money and you're a good salesperson. So you're going to convince poor business owners to give you money to do marketing and you're probably going to lose all their money. So That's the majority of marketers. The minority, the good agencies, tend to quickly go up market, get really expensive, want long contracts, high minimums, something that makes them hard to work with too. And so the end result is if you're not a Fortune 1000 or some really sexy startup, you're probably not getting access to great marketing. And that's what I wanted to solve. So
Got it.
with the mission of creating accessibility to great marketing for everyone, I hired a small SWAT team originally, each with their own expertise. One of the best Facebook marketers I knew, email marketer, web designer, et cetera. And then went back to these companies and said, hey, everything's a la carte, month to month, cheaper than hiring in-house. But the idea is you can spin up exactly what you need when you need it, and we can ebb and flow as you need things to change. And that's how we started. And fast forward, it's been 6.5 years, and now we're about 170 full-time people, and still on that same model.
Nice. Well, that's great. And if I'm not mistaken, you actually told me once that when you were in college, you didn't think that marketing was, it was sort of a laughable major. And then that suddenly changed, of course, when you were in real estate and everything kind of fell out from underneath you. How did you realize that marketing was important and then kind of get set on that path?
Yeah, it was honestly just young ignorance and pretentiousness. I was a business management major, which means less. There's like, that means generalize and everything business. But, you know, and don't get me wrong, I liked my education, but I was just making fun because I was like, what does marketing mean? Like, you draw pictures and come up with funny slogans. Like, what do you do all day? And right. So, no, it was really with launching the first online company, the Fame Wizard, it was called, the music company. We found a hack for Craigslist that we were able to basically post in the gig section that we can help people get gigs. We were doing business coaching for musicians, and we just flooded ourselves with leads of people that wanted to hire us to help them get more gigs and build their business. And that's what we were looking for. And I just started to understand, I don't think at that time I thought of that as marketing, but I understood that like being where your customer is and being in front of them with a value proposition that resonates with them, and being very direct, and and also doing it in a way that's cost effective. These all started to play a huge factor in the way I was growing businesses. Same thing with the two after that. I always had to figure out how am I going to get customers at an affordable rate that are going to make more money, et cetera. And that is marketing. Mm-hmm. And so through kind of trial by fire, I had to figure it out and learn it, and then turned out I had a knack for it. And so was able to build a couple of successful companies through it.
Awesome. Okay. One more thing before we get into this value prop workshop. Of course, a value proposition is frequently driven by the marketing team. They kind of come up with the copy, but it's something that's going to be used in the day-to-day by the sales team. How do you think that sales and marketing fit together kind of in that way in a strong business?
Yeah, it's collaborative. I mean, a lot of times marketing is a support system for sales, but sales also has to keep the messaging consistent with marketing. So it's like, it's symbiotic. I think separating it is a mistake. And even now we're actually interviewing for a new head of marketing for our internal marketing. And one of the most valuable things people are saying on those interviews is, yeah, I've worked in a lot of situations where sales and marketing are collaborating, because for some reason, people love to create tension when there doesn't need to be. In just general, it's like human nature. You look at our political system, et cetera, it's like, we're all trying to get the same thing done here. Why are we turning this into a him versus me or them versus us thing? Like, we're all going for the same goal. So it's the same thing with sales and marketing. A lot of times in organizations, like, they start getting contentious because sales saying they can't close because marketing isn't getting good leads, and marketing is saying they're not driving revenue because sales doesn't know how to close shit. So right. That argument that happens, that it's like, well, you're all in it together, so you need to figure out how to drive better leads, and you need to figure out how to close stuff. And like, it's figuring out how to have them work together is super important.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, then let's get right into it. Sure. That's what everyone's here for. So one of the biggest kind of key drivers for writing a good value proposition is to be able to demonstrate value through your copy. Yep. What is the best way to do that?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a different take on, like, I don't know if I'd even call this a value proposition. It's actually more of almost the elevator pitch distilled. Mm-hmm. And something that we very much focus on here and that helped us grow our business incredibly fast was the idea of just one sentence that really articulates the value of your company, which, again, a lot of times is called a value proposition. But the idea is, like, I've traditionally heard elevator pitch. You have 30 seconds on an elevator. How are you going to pitch your business? Nobody has 30 seconds anymore. 3. So the idea of taking that and distilling it down to try to create a statement that people will get really quickly, that, at least they'll be on board with wanting to know more, is a really important part of business. And it's less about that first degree of connection, like the first person you're advertising to, the first person you speak to about your business, the person your salesperson is talking to. They do have 30 seconds to talk to someone usually. It's the second degree. Word of mouth is still the biggest driver of business by far. And if you don't have that K factor or viral coefficient, meaning you don't have a multiplier for every person you sell on your company to go tell other people, it's really hard to grow a business. And so word of mouth is, again, still the biggest driver. And to create that word of mouth, if you make it really easy to pass along your value by, again, creating one sentence people have to remember that they can just regurgitate to their connections about why they should call you, it's just going to be more difficult to grow. So you really want to find that sentence. And so, the way we build that is really, it's a combination of informative and intriguing. So for us, in what we did, I was trying all different things. Like, I in doing kind of the hand-to-hand combat of testing this when you're first starting out is also really important. You got to be able to read people, got to have some EQ, and actually try different ways of saying it. Because you can see, like, people would say, what do you do? Oh, I run a marketing agency. Because I'm one of the 99% that are bullshit that everyone's dealt with. And then, okay, that didn't work. How about I run a digital agency? It's like, oh, okay. Like, nobody was interested. And I kept playing with it. And it was like, I run a marketing consultancy. And then I'd hear, oh, okay, so like you guys just advise and then farm it out and someone else executes, because consultants usually don't actually do the work. Like, no, we do that. They're like, oh, well, then you're a marketing agency. Like, well, kind of. And it was like always playing with this. And what at the time, this is really where it came from. There was no real way to articulate the same thing, where there was an outsourced CFO service getting very popular. There were like 10 of them in LA all of a sudden, where it was CFO level services, but fractional CFO services. And I just looked at that and said, it's funny, no one's done that for CMOs. That's basically what I'm doing, is being an outsourced CMO. And so then being at different networking events, et cetera, people would say, well, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I run Hawke Media. It's an outsourced CMO. And they'd be like, oh, and like, you saw that light and it's like, perfect, nailed it. And now we own the trademark for your outsourced CMO. So
there you go.
And the reason that worked, and then I've expanded it now, and I just say your outsourced CMO and marketing team, because I started getting into the same kind of consulting thing where it's like, oh, is it just CMO, fractional CMO, or is it you guys actually do the work too? So we articulate that, but what that does is, by saying your outsourced CMO, it connotes that, yeah, we're in marketing, we're going to help you with your marketing, but you're going to outsource it to us. And it's high level, it's C-suite level help. It's not just some Facebook marketer that's going to do your buying. Like, we have that, but you're going to get CMO level help. So it sets us apart from the rest and gives us a differentiator while also presenting the value, which is like, you're going to get that outside expert help that you need. So there, again, I don't need to hit someone over the head and say that. I can just say, we're your outsourced CMO. And a lot of people have been able to understand that quickly.
Yeah. Awesome. It's very clear, very concise.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let's walk our listeners through their kind of step-by-step if they're trying to create this type of distilled elevator pitch from scratch. Where do they start?
Start with an elevator pitch, I'd say. Start with 30 seconds of what is the value of your company? The why. The Simon Sinek would start with why thing of like, what is the core of what you're offering? What problem are you solving for people? And it could be a want or a need. So like, even if it's, and I say problem, and problem can be taken to an extreme sometimes, and every fashion company thinks they need to be like innovative in some problem solution. That problem can just be like, you want to look better, like, and we can make you look better. Like that's a problem. It's whatever. And it's really important to understand with a value proposition, like, nobody buys anything if they're completely satisfied and don't like the idea of any purchase is that you want to change your current state to whatever the promise is of that purchase. If it's, and I mean anything, and you're talking about shoes, it doesn't just mean that you have bad shoes and you want to look better. It could be your shoes are wearing out, your shoes don't fit you right anymore. Or yeah, again, you just like that pair and you're going to feel better if you buy them. But it's always a change of state. If you don't have that desire and that aspiration, you're not going to purchase. So understanding that, you have to really distill down what is the aspiration of someone buying your product or service. So, I'm trying to think of a good example, but for Hawke Media, we always talk about it's bandwidth or expertise is why they hire us, or a punching bag. And that's sincere. We try to avoid the punching bag, but literally people hire us for 3 reasons. It's tight on time, they've got money, but they don't have enough time to execute on all the things they want to. So they're going to bring us in because they don't have the staff to do it. They don't have the expertise. They don't know enough about marketing. They need help in specific marketing or in general to build an execution plan to actually be able to get things done. Or a lot of times this is sincere and it's usually subconscious, but people are looking for a place to place. A lot of entrepreneurs look to place blame on someone else when their company's not doing well. So they're struggling. They hire someone to say they're going to fix it. And then when they don't, they're like, oh, I didn't succeed because of this person. And so those we try to suss out. But understanding all that, we can then make sure we play to the bandwidth and expertise and suss out the punching bag thing and actually start to articulate, okay, so if you need bandwidth or expertise, well, that's why, again, even though it's super simple, your outsourced CMO and marketing team connotes both. CMO is expertise, marketing team is bandwidth. We're done. And so that's the first step. And then again, it's really, I like to get tactical. I like to get like really hand to hand and like go talk to people about it, and not your friends and family. I'm talking about your customers, your potential partners, your network, like talking to them about what you're doing and making sure they get excited and not placating you and not patronizing you and like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Good job. High five. Oh, that's awesome. But like actually wanting to do business with you, like following up with you, being like, this sounds really interesting. Like, I'd love to do more. Like, how do I get involved? Like, how do I buy it? And it, that's the only real way you're going to really figure out the best way to articulate your business and to create that value proposition. You start with distilling down and really understanding clearly why people would want to work with you or buy from you. And then you, again, go out there and talk about it. Because, and I see this a lot with some of the biggest companies out there, like the biggest companies in the world, the most successful companies in the world started with an entrepreneur that was just hustling by themselves, trying to figure it out. Whether it's Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, they're all started in dorm rooms and garages. And like, it was one person trying to figure it out. And there's, something to be said about that, because it forces you to like, you've got to talk to the customer. You don't have a bunch of money to go hire a bunch of people to never deal with them. And so if you're forced to, and I was told when I first started my company, like, expect to be the main salesperson as the founder for the first 2 to 4 years. And it took me 3.5 to step out of sales. I was 3.5 years in, I was 85% of our book of business, even with a few salespeople. So like took a lot to step out of that for me. But it also, for now, like, nobody knows our customer better than I do. When we're building our business out, when we're making decisions, I really know why they're here and what they're hiring us for. And it allows me to make bigger decisions a lot clearer, because that need hasn't changed, that desire hasn't changed, and our customer hasn't changed that much. And so I'm able to make other business decisions, strategic decisions based around that. For example, and this is going a little wider than the core of the talk, but it helps because like now we're expanding into a bunch of different cities. So we opened offices in Boston, New York. We now have made hires in Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, Detroit. Where else are we? Minnesota, Chicago, Detroit, Boise. And we're looking at different cities because I know our customer wants us to be where they are. And that's just a desire that our customers have, logical or not. They want to know whether we're down the street. I've had this debate 100 times, and it's one of those funny things where it's like, where's your lawyer? Where's your insurance agent? Where are all these service providers? And when's the last time you were actually at their office, and didn't just pick up the phone to call them? Like, when do you actually meet face to face with your attorney or your insurance agent, unless they just say, hey, I'll just come to your office? Like, you don't know, most people don't care, but they still hire in their arm's reach. So we sell the same thing. And again, back to the value, we want to be, and so that accessibility thing is so big for us on a mission side of things. We want to make sure that people find us to be very accessible.
Makes sense. Yeah, hopping in the background there. Yeah. Okay, so the number one most important thing is obviously nailing down that value that you provide your customer. That's what's going to be the core of this value prop. And then from there, it's figuring out how to kind of articulate it and testing that against different people's reactions, people outside of your kind of inner circle, people that are going to give you a really honest feedback. How do you take that? So say you've gotten a really good response from people, the kind of sentence that you're saying to them makes sense, they understand, they can see the value. How do you take that and make it concise? Because you mentioned it needs to be this kind of one sentence, maybe 5 to 7 words. And I think a lot of us struggle to distill it down to something that small. So how do you do that?
And it's not easy. I mean, I think you just have to get to the point. And a lot of people have, especially with their baby, they have a heart. Like we also have a venture fund, so we get pitched a lot. And I'm constantly like, I'll sit on the phone for 30 minutes listening to someone talk about their business. I'm like, okay, so one sentence, what do you do? Like, I don't want to, you don't have this kind of time. Like, one sentence, what do you do? And again, that's where practice, like I would say, figure that out first and then test it, not talk to people a bunch about it and be all over the place. Like, try to distill it down first and then just see, does it get an emotional response? Because remember, even B2B, B2C, it's all emotion. People are driven by emotion. They justify emotion with logic, but you have to get an excited relief, some kind of positive response that makes people go, God, I gotta call you. I gotta buy this. It can, again, it can be excitement, it can be relief, it can be a few different emotions that drives, but you have to figure that out. And I would distill that first. And then once you see you've been able to like break down your value into a sentence, which again is not easy, but I don't know that there's a shortcut or a way to do this that is just like, hey, follow these steps and you've got your value proposition, because I think it's actually got to be pretty unique per company. Right. But once you figure out like, what is the core of what you're offering and how can I articulate that in a sentence, and you've tested it and people are intrigued and they get it and it like works. Because remember, the key here is making sure that they get it so they tell their friends. Mm-hmm. That is the key in all of this, is like, you want them to understand it so they turn around and tell their friends. Because if, again, you look at every single successful company, even Uber, like, I don't know what their actual value proposition is, but it's like, yeah, you just call a car on your phone, it shows up wherever you are, it's super easy. Like, that's the kind of stuff, like I don't know what their sentence would be, but like, if they had one, that makes it easy. And it's that word that really drives. So once you have it, then you have to basically be incessant with it for a long time. Like, you might hear it over and over again. We're, again, almost 7 years into business, we're still using your outsourced CMO. And my team goes, should we maybe think about changing this, et cetera? I'm like, we haven't scratched the surface on the market. Like, no, the answer is not, absolutely not. Like, you've got to get to pretty solid market penetration before you're looking at changing what that is, because the idea of reinforcing it and continuing to repeat it also helps people commit it to memory. So again, the more you talk about it, the more people talk about it. And now, people literally associate, they say, oh, Hawke Media, it's this outsourced CMO. We coined the phrase, we own the trademark, but people talk about it like as if we're, oh yeah, that's what they are. And so now we've done enough marketing around the idea of it that we are associated with that, kind of like tissues and Kleenex, where it's like, that's just, what they are. And that's what we've been trying to build. And that, again, that from a sustainable branding perspective becomes really powerful, because I don't have to spend a ton of money on marketing for that to happen. It's when people need marketing help, my name comes up because I'm top of mind for people. They're like, oh yeah, Eric, you got to talk to Erik, you got to talk to Hawke, this outsourced CMO.
Makes sense. And what about with a company that has like a very, this wouldn't be the sentence that they use, but a very like complicated value prop? I know that marketing does actually complicated stuff, and it kind of covers a whole lot of ground. So you've got to find a way to encapsulate that. How would you recommend that somebody distill all of the ways that they can help into something so short?
Yeah, what it's about, you focus on the problem a lot of times, or what are you solving, not what are you doing? Because a lot of times, we have, I think, 47 different services or something here. Like, we have a massive list of different, and that's different types of services. Then there's different SKUs on each service. Like, if I wanted to go into it, I could be like, yeah, so we do strategy and Facebook marketing and email marketing and Google ads and web design, and like, you can go, that's what you do. But again, like the higher level, and again, we still say we're your outsourced CMO and marketing team, which is still kind of a what, but it immediately connotes the why, which is we solve your bandwidth and expertise. We create accessibility to great marketing. And that's what we're trying to articulate in a lot of the ways, the other messages we use throughout our advertising and sales process. So with someone that's complicated, a lot of times they're almost self-assured that they're complicated, and it really isn't that complicated. Like, I've come to learn there's very few, there are companies out there that are, kind of high science companies, things that are, really advanced, that might be a little harder, but still usually solving a very direct problem. And that's the balance that I usually see there, because we deal with this all the time, because we do actually do this for companies. We'll go in and actually help them to articulate it. I had a call this morning, I'm not going to call them out, but it's kind of a real estate consultancy that my salesperson actually called me and said, I don't know what they do. And I'm like, well, then I think that strategy and messaging is probably a good start in what to do with us, because he's a smart guy. He's been with us for years. He's our top business development person. And if he can't understand what the company does, and I do, because I have a background in real estate, my whole family's in real estate. So I looked at it, I was like, okay, I think this is what they do. But again, now we're talking about, like, I invest in real estate. I am their customer. They would say they're targeting real estate agents. I have my real estate license. And it's like, I don't get it. So, but after looking at it, I was like, oh, okay, I think I understand. They do this for this. And sometimes it's that simple. Like, what are you trying? What problem are you solving? And instead they go into this whole history and background and trying to prove themselves versus just, this is what we do. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also a sort of generational thing where these days people are quick. Just tell me what you do. Don't bullshit me. Don't beat around the bush. Just, what is it? Got it. Okay, now you can go into all the details that sell me, but get my attention with the overarching principle here, and then go into all the details.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the kind of sales strategy side of it. You mentioned that a couple minutes ago. Of course, this feeds into kind of the rest of the sales cycle in a business. What do you think the sales impact is if you're able to distill your elevator pitch or your value prop in this way?
Yeah. So a few things. One, trust is a big part of the sales process. And if they came in, what's really nice is if someone mentions they're like your outsourced CMO and they come in and you say we're your outsourced CMO, you've just reinforced what their friend said and now you're aligned. So trust goes a lot further. On top of that, you're going to have way more leads because the biggest key of this, and something I didn't say yet, is people will talk about companies as long as they don't feel awkward. So if they're trying to explain Hawke Media as an example, and I didn't give them your outsourced CMO, and they go try to tell someone, they're like this marketing company, they do like Facebook, and I think they do strategy, and I think they do email marketing, but like, you should talk to them. That's awkward. I just felt awkward talking about the company. And so I'm never going to do it again.
Right.
You tell someone like, yeah, we're just your outsourced CMO marketing team. And then they go, oh, you should talk to Hawke Media. They're like your outsourced CMO marketing team. I'll introduce you. And the person goes, oh, okay. Like, now I feel good. I'm going to go tell a bunch of people about this because I felt good talking about it. And people feel good introducing people to other things. I mean, there's many businesses like Yelp that exist because people like to make their recommendations and share things with people. I mean, that's all of social media. So, and so making that easy so that it's not awkward for them will drive way more word of mouth, which means way more leads for sales. And again, there's a bunch of benefits there because when someone's coming through word of mouth, their propensity to buy is way higher. The trust is already there. Their friend recommended you, their colleague, whatever. So you already have third-party validation, which is a big part of a sales process. And you also have a little consistency around what hopefully is being articulated to them and what you're saying. So now again, trust goes even further. You also have qualification because they came to you because they need you. You're not trying to reach out to them and sell them. They already came. It's inbound. They're like, hey, I need this help. If you've done a good value proposition and that really is your value proposition and that is what they heard, they're coming to you saying basically, oh, I need what you do. And I also trust you because my friend told me to trust you and you're saying the same thing they did. So I trust you even more. So like, it's a layup. And you basically, if you create that and you create that ecosystem where it's getting spread, you're getting layups all the time, which is our business. I mean, this is probably 40% of our revenue is driven by this type of action.
Right. You're getting these warm introductions where, as you mentioned, these people have this trust because they've heard from somebody that they trust exactly what you do. And then you've confirmed that when they speak to you. What about on the kind of cold outbound side of things? Because of course, a value prop is being developed for salespeople to go out and use, even if there isn't that kind of warm intro already there. What kind of impact do you see on outbound results when this type of value prop has been written and is, concise and clear?
It's exactly what you just said. When it's concise and clear, people don't give cold outreach any time. But if in the first sentence it gets my attention and it's like, oh, CMO, like, again, you're going to get responses from people that actually need you, that resonate with it immediately. You're going to, just like any cold outreach, like we're reaching out to people, we do it too. And most of the people we're reaching out to are already happy with their marketing. A lot of them aren't, a lot of them are, but the ones that are, they're not going to answer. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But all the people that are not happy with their marketing see your outsourced CMO and marketing team and go, oh, that's, again, they need bandwidth or expertise. And there's not really anything else. So it's like, either I don't have the team that's knows what they're doing, or I'm the team that has the time to do it. Boom, I just gave you both. Okay, great, let's talk. And so we have a lot of success with that too, because it's really quick articulated. And that's, again, on the B2B side of things, which I guess is most of your audience. So.
Mostly, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And thank you so much for kind of the other step-by-steps that go into building this elevator pitch, this distilled elevator pitch or value prop for different companies. Certainly, I think it's something that our listeners can take away and start to work on theirs, distilling it down, really providing that value first and foremost, and in a way that as you've kind of said again and again, is repeatable by your customers, because word of mouth is still the most important way to grow. It's still the most prevalent way that companies are growing. So if you can find a way to sort of hack that with this value prop, it's going to be absolutely monumental for your business. Any other kind of last words of wisdom around building a value prop, if it's something that our listeners are going to go away and try to do right now?
Yeah, I would say again, the balance comes in with nothing is sacred. So feel free to keep honing it. Because like even what I said there, like we're talking, let's talk about the predictable revenue. If you actually went with that Salesforce model, I go out and talk to 10 people and they go, oh, cool. Well, that's not going to work. I need people to be like, we need to talk on Monday. I need help. Like that needs to be a response. And if you're not getting that, move on, keep honing it. But then again, commit to it, because at some point you want to repeat it over and over and over and over and over again, so that it gets really instilled in your ecosystem that that's what you do. This is who you are, and people will remember you. Because then the next part of this is just staying top of mind, so that when someone has the need that you're solving, they can't do anything, but they can't forget you. That you're always going to come up in their head as that solution to that problem.
Okay. When do you think that key moment is that you stop taking it out to new people, you stop kind of iterating and you commit?
Yeah, I think it's when you consistently see it, like intrigue and action from the people you're saying it to, where they're like, I need to talk to you. Like, and we still use the same one again. I started calling this your outsourced CMO like right when we started, because I spent a few months consulting by myself and started using different phrases, and then realized your outsourced CMO was it. So we stuck with it. And immediately people are like, I need your help. I need your help. By the way, like they knew nothing about me, but that did it. So we've stuck with it to this point, because from then forward, it still drives the same thing. Now, maybe at some point, like if that had become redundant, because I'm sure there was a point where a marketing agency was a really cool phrase. Like nobody had been that. Like you're an agent, but you're in marketing. That's interesting. Like maybe, I sincerely don't know the history of this, but maybe it spun out of the idea of like government agencies, and now we're the marketing agency. Like I don't really know where that phrase originally came from, but like at the time it was probably really interesting. And then it starts getting overused. With us, we had to walk in the trademark, because every other, it's remarkable to me, but marketing agencies seem to have no originality and don't know how to create their marketing. So a lot of people started copying ours. So at some point, maybe ours becomes redundant and we have to make a change, but it just depends. You do see over decades, companies a lot of times will change their messaging. So there is times where you revisit it, but it's usually a long after you've like saturated the market. Got it.
Well, Erik, if people want to learn more from you, if they want to get in touch with you, where can they do that?
Any social media channel, @/Erik Huberman. It's super
awesome.
easy. Huberman.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Erik. Massively insightful. I know that I'm going to go away and work on my value prop for my own outbound efforts. And I know that a lot of our listeners will. And those of you listening, we'd love to hear your kind of new and improved value props. If you can drop them in the comments to the YouTube, if you can write it on LinkedIn and tag us and tag Erik in it, I'm sure he'd be interested to see it too. We'd love to see what you got out of this episode and how you've applied it. So thanks again.
If you tweet it at me at Erik Huberman, I'll retweet it to 250,000 people. Let's see those.
There you go. And there's your inbound right there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erik, again for coming on the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you again next time.